Today in the Tristen Law Show, you're going to meet pro wrestling's richest prize. His name is Darius Carter, and that's today on the Tristen Law Show. Welcome to the Tristen Law Show, where I introduce you to the personalities in and out of the pro wrestling ring. The unique part is you don't have to be a pro wrestling fan to enjoy this podcast. If it is your first time here, new episodes drop Wednesdays, and welcome. I'm your host, Tristen Law, and I'm glad that you've returned for another personality in and out of the pro wrestling ring. Real quick, have you secured any Tristen Law Show merch? If you have, tag me at The Real Big Tris on Instagram or Twitter. And you also have the option to tag the show on Twitter and Instagram at Tristen Show. Remember though, in order for us to see the tag, your profile can't be set to private. But if you haven't bought any merch, go support the show at TristenLawShow.com. Hey, that's what brings me here every week. This is episode 27 featuring Darius Carter. Let me tell you, I've known Darius for quite a long time, and you'll get to hear him and we do a little bit of catching up, all while you get to meet the man behind the personality. We're going to talk about how he felt while in WWE. Alberto Del Rio and MJF, who is currently with AEW, started portraying a character just like Darius Carter on national television. We're also going to talk about a tweet he once sent to William Regal of WWE, how he was inspired to step into the pro wrestling ring, and trust me when I tell you, much, much more. Don't you go anywhere, because when I return, I have Darius Carter with me, and you don't want to miss this one. I am Tristen Law, and this is the Tristen Law Show.
Hello to all of you Tristen Law Show podcast listeners. This is Frank Mandolini. You may not recognize this voice. I am the Italian podcaster who talks about the business side of wrestling. Yeah, I know, it's quite niche. But if you look for last minute wrestling podcast on all of your social media and wherever you get your podcast, you've been amazed to find interviews with people such as Rob Van Dam or Matthew Gregg from Botchamania and many others, so you get to know many aspects of the wrestling business that normally you don't hear in wrestling podcasts. Because let's face it, who wants to hear another guy talk about Monday Night Raw? Yeah, me neither. So guys, go to lmwpodcast.com or search for LMW Podcast everywhere in the interweb. And remember guys, this is Frank Mandolini from the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast, and you stay safe.
My next guest at this time has been ranked at number 337 out of 500 pro wrestlers in the world by Pro Wrestling Illustrated. He is the richest prize in all of pro wrestling. He is the all-father. And my friend, Darius Carter. Darius, finally, welcome to the Tristen Law Show. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing extremely well. Blessed and highly favored. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me. The all-father and wrestling's richest prize.
And Mr. 337 out of 500 pro wrestlers in the world, ranked by Pro Wrestling Illustrated. That's a big deal, bro.
That means a lot, man. That means everything to me. And you know me, man, with always wanting to pay it back, and to the people that got us there. And BWO, man, BWO is where it all started. I have no shame in saying that. I don't care any school that I have trained at afterwards. BWO always gets the nod because that's where I started. That's where I went in 2 months after starting in college. You know, I'm starting to train in professional wrestling. So amazing.
Well, we will definitely jump into that. But, you know, as we talked about, you were ranked 337 out of 500 pro wrestlers in the world by Pro Wrestling Illustrated. And I've had other personalities on here that have been ranked on the PWI 500. How and when did you learn that you made the list?
That's funny. So I was actually at work, which is what I'm always doing, and I actually got a message from Black Baron, Baron Black, if you will. We called him Black Baron in Beyond Wrestling years ago when he came out. It was a fun time. Baron Black had sent me a message and was like, "Look, and I was like, I was at work and I saw that and I lit up. I was like, because like I had that when I was younger, and you had that too, the PWI, and that was just a Bible of sorts, you would look to see the top 10 in the world. And that's really how I learned about, a lot about TNA and about those other wrestlers, because I used to go to the bookstore and I would read all the magazines back when magazines were the thing. You remember all those wrestling magazines that were out. And I used to read them all, 6 of them. I'd go to the local mall or wherever, and I would sit there and I would read through them. And that's how you learned about some of these other places. Maybe you didn't watch TNA, you didn't watch this, but AJ Styles is number 3 in the world. Like I should know who this is.
Right.
And that's really the power that had back then.
I remember when we first started wrestling and PWI started becoming a thing, and it was always a thing, but we all felt that we had to get on it. I remember there was a time, I don't know if they do it now, Darius, that you had to submit yourself on it, and people used to submit themselves on it. And from what I understand, a lot of people used to get in from submitting themselves on it. I'm glad that there's a lot of guys and girls or women that got on it that didn't have to submit themselves. I don't know if it's still a common practice.
Yeah, and I know there are submissions, because that's just the way that it is. And I know that there are ways, that I guess, I don't want to say unscrupulous ways, because it's an honorable list, but people trying to shove their way in per se. But for me, I'm really proud of this, because this is my 11 years in, and I don't sit here and say how long I work. I'm not one of those people. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a veteran, because people are going to call you a veteran. You don't have to call yourself a vet. You don't have to say, oh, I've been doing this a long time. You don't have to say that. If you project yourself and you carry yourself that way in and out of the ring, people are going to know that.
Right.
And people will say that, and they'll be like, oh, how, after my match, they'll be like, you've been working. Oh, okay. Like, that makes sense. And I'm like, yeah, I don't sit there and say it. There's nothing to puff your chest out about that. But to get in there in the 11th year and to finally rank, and then to rank as high as I did. I mean, people are like, oh, you could have ranked higher. And I'm like, you can always rank higher, but like, you can rank lower too. And I'm like, 337. I'm like, to be like that, that's, lower in the better half of every professional wrestler in the world. We're talking AEW, WWE, TNA, Impact now, New Japan, All Japan. Like, that's a serious number. And I put so much work in to get that. I put so much right now during a pandemic, and I just keep my nose to the dirt and keep grinding, but I keep myself active. I continue to wrestle and perform during the pandemic. I'm getting tested before these shows, so I'm in and out of the office there, and I don't have to sit here and post receipts. Like, this is just what I'm doing. Like, this is part of my hustle. This is part of my life. And if people who know me like you do know that that's just how I handle things. I don't need to put the bulletin on the wall that says I'm a hustler. I don't need to play the loud music and drive by in your neighborhood for you to know. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just doing it, and it means so much to see that pay off. I mean, you can't take that from me. You can say whatever you want about me. You can say this, you can say that. You can try and rally against me. You can try and say something political against me. But I will always have the fact that I ranked, where I ranked in the best professional wrestlers in the world. And then if you have something to say about that, you have something to say about PWI. And if you have something to say about PWI, that's your problem and certainly not mine.
If they have an issue that you're ranked at 337 and they're a worker, I mean, quite frankly, not to be rude or disrespectful for anybody else, then you go get ranked on PWI 500. Like I'm not upset that there's a lot of people on there that got ranked. I look at myself, Darius, and I know why I didn't get ranked. I didn't get ranked because I didn't work enough matches. And, from wrestling, from the time, I took a break. I took a break. I didn't go continuously like you did, for all those years. So you had time to build your equity. One of the things you said was about being a veteran. I remember when I left and I came back and it was like, I don't know any of these people. All these people are brand new. And people are coming over to me and they want to get my take on their matches. They want me to watch their matches. And for me, like you said, I don't walk around, saying, hey, I'm a veteran. No, because I still feel like there's a lot for me to learn, and I still want to learn because I want to become better. If I don't ever make it to the WWE or AEW or Impact Wrestling, at least, there's a bunch of people around me that I can motivate them to get to that next level.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And that's important is to remember that motivation and to remember that. I think a lot of people, they let it slip. I think they let one match slip into the next match, and they don't really, sometimes they don't separate it. They don't compartmentalize. And that's something I had to learn. I learned that in college was compartmentalizing because I had so many things going on at once. I had college, I had training, I had, the business I was doing, on my, not on my own, work with some people, in groups and this and that and financial groups. So I'm doing all these different things, looking to better myself and to get to the next level and just not posting it again on your bulletin like, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm just doing it. I was hustling. I was going from a class to the cafeteria, back to the dorm to change and then get right on out there. And then come back, study, a little bit, wake up the next morning, study. I mean, people don't understand, and I guess you have to post pictures and selfies and stuff like that for people to understand that. But that's not how this works. And that's why it means so much. Everything that I accomplish means so much. I think some people, they don't appreciate their accomplishments. You know what I mean? They're egotistical or whatever, but they're not really appreciating what they've done. Like all this stuff matters to me to get here, to get to where I've gotten to. You better believe I'm taking note of every number because I struggled. Right. I crawled and scratched, and you knew that, man. Even me coming in my first match, and I remember my first match was like a 3-minute match, and then you're just like thinking to yourself, like, all these things because it's your first match. Things you shouldn't be thinking in a lot of ways. Right. But you're like, oh, like 3 minutes. Like, yeah, and that was, of course, in hindsight, it's making you better. It's building your ego. But in your first, this is what you're thinking about. Against Johnny Ego, I remember. It's been an awesome career. Let's put it that way. And I'm just glad to be where I am, and I'm glad to reach the levels that I'm reaching. And again, you never know when it's going to happen. You never know when anything's going to happen. Eddie Kingston in his 18th year, so you never know. But I'm telling you, my irons are to the fire. Like I feel it, and I'm feeling something great. And the work is there. The work is coming, and it's getting better. And the level of competition is getting better. So we'll see, right?
Of course. So there was somebody else who held the 337 spot. Somebody who we both know from our time in BWO. Took a little bit of digging. But in 2012, I don't know if you know this guy. His name is Crowbar from WCW. Yeah, he worked for those of my people that are listening, he worked for WCW, WWF, and ECW, and he did hold a 337 spot in 2012. So, Darius, I want to know, what are your plans to be included in the PWI 500 for 2021, and where do you rank yourself?
I mean, I definitely rank myself higher, but like I say, at the same token, the level of competition, you have to realize this is the best in the world. We're talking about everywhere. So you can't sit here and be like, oh, I'm number one, and just bypass the likes of John Moxley and the likes of Randy Orton, the real number one wrestler in the world, if you ask me, but Orton, Bailey, Okada. So I understand how that, I'm not sitting here saying I'm number one, and but all I know is I definitely feel like I deserve. If I ranked 337 last year, I rank higher this year. There's just no doubt about it. You know, I won my 16th championship of my career, the Dark Arts, the Pro Wrestling Magic Dark Arts Championship. I won that in a tournament to start the year. I beat TJ Crawford, and then I went on to beat Everett Cross, the inaugural Dark Arts champion. I beat them both in the same night. Then I won a tag team tournament, Catalyst Wrestling, with O'Shea Edwards, you know, who's doing what he's doing now in Ring of Honor. So him and I just won a CDAO tag team tournament. So I won 2 tournaments in January of 2021. We've just begun. I'm a 16-time champion, and right now I'm holding that championship with Pro Wrestling Magic, and I'm the Warriors of Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion over 190 days. So, you know, we're actually 202 days to be exact. So this is, you know, this is just where we're at right now. You know, I'm putting in the work, and I'm glad the results are shining back onto me, but I have to keep on moving. You can't ever get complacent. And like you said, even if you were to get signed by WWE, AEW, that doesn't mean that you just rest at your level. It's not like, all right, well, I got signed at this level, so I'm going to compete at this level. It's like, no, we got to step up.
Right.
Once, you know, you get to WWE, okay, you got to start over again. It's
right.
like, all right, I got to be, now I look around and I got to be better than Shinsuke Nakamura. I got to be better than Christian. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to be better, whether those are the best examples at this particular time or not. But the point that I'm making is that you get, you know, the tougher your competition, the better you get. You know, so you want to be in a locker room where you feel like the talent around you are the best, because that's just going to make you better by proxy. So that was my plan for 2020, was to travel and to see different locker rooms, to maybe go to Mexico or maybe do Germany. Germany was at the top of my list. So to be in those locker rooms and to watch and to see how they're doing this and doing that. And those intricacies are the things I yearn for. So that's what I was looking to do. Pandemic shut that down. So now I've had to find my way of making my way in a pandemic, and I've made new debuts in a pandemic. So I have to do what I have to do, man. Camp Leapfrog and Paris is bumping. I have to shout those out. There are more that I can't quite say yet, but new promotions, new debuts, championships being won. Like, this year has definitely been better than 2020. Mm-hmm. So if I was 337 then, I'm definitely higher now. I have to be.
I 100% agree with the fact that you said that when you get to the next level, and the key word here is when, not if, but when you get to the next level. Because I look at myself as well, too, that if I'm not a world-renowned pro wrestler, I would love to be a world-renowned podcaster. And one day somebody may pick me up and say, hey, WWE may, or AEW may always want to say, hey, I want you to do a podcast for us. I can't podcast at the level that got me here. Granted, it's what brought me to the dance. I need to step it up a level and compete with people with like Conrad Thompson and, you know, Bruce Pritchard and Chris Van Vliet and all those other people. So those are my goals. But let's take a step back and go all the way back to the beginning, Darius. And I want to know, what are your earliest memories of pro wrestling as a fan?
That's always a good one. My earliest memories really are with my great grandmother. And, you know, we would go to see her, me and my mother, and, you know, she had her rocking chair, and it was great. And she had the TV set up, and we would always watch, you know, pro wrestling. It was even getting into the Sunday Night Heat era. So there's that. Funny, one match I remember watching randomly there was Gangrel and Steve Blackman. So there's that. I was like, all right. Yeah, we just watched a lot of stuff, and Ric Flair was always the person that captivated me the most, and it was the same with my great-grandmother. She loved Flair and couldn't stand Hogan, and I just, you know, and just like and I never really catered or cared for him either. It was just like I like the Flair because I like the the pomp, the circumstance, the over the top, but also very realistic. I mean, the man was walking around with the women. He had the clothes, he had the robes, he had the championship almost all the time. You never saw Ric Flair really without the title. And if he didn't have the title, he was challenging for the title. He was always on top. And to be on top that long against in a period when they were arguably the best professional wrestlers in the world at that period, or the best point of pro wrestling in terms of a traditional standpoint. We had some incredible talents at that time. Dusty Rhodes, the Magnum TAs, Harley Race was still there doing his thing. We talk about Terry Funk. We talk about Sting that was coming up. We talk about the young, let's say about the Great Muta who had just come there at the time. So there was a lot. The 80s was a very rich wrestling period. But those were Ric Flair. Yeah, that was just what he always stuck with me. And even in WCW, even when they cut his hair short, and he was doing these things that were kind of to get a laugh, I was like, that's still a legend. I always saw Ric Flair for Ric Flair. But but getting back to that with my great grandmother, that's how I remember it. I remember watching wrestling with her and just fell in love with it. I was just in love with all of it, with all the in-betweens, the entrances, the wrestling. It was more than just the wrestling. It was the entrances, the wrestling, the crowd, so the commentary, everything came together for me. Ric Flair was my guy, but I fell in love with pro wrestling. Flair was basically showing me the way in his own way,
When did you realize that you were hooked to pro wrestling?
Yeah, no, I knew when I saw it. There was never a question. And I never stopped watching wrestling. There was never a period where I took off. There were some people, friends of mine, that when I was 9, so 1999, between me being 9 and 11, so 99 and 2001, people had stopped watching for whatever reason. Oh, The Rock wasn't there, or Austin wasn't as prominent. Some people kind of stopped watching in my age bracket, but I never stopped. I watched wrestling all the way through. There was never an off period, WWE into WWF. And then as time went on, you become acquainted with all these other different programs. And that's where that really came in. That was 2002 and 2001, 2002. Then you start learning about that. You start learning about Ring of Honor, because Ring of Honor was always in the PWI.
Right.
And then that's how I learned about Nigel McGuinness, who ended up being one of my very favorite. I feel like anybody who's a wrestler's wrestler, they know about the ROH 2000s, as I like to call them, because everyone has a favorite wrestler from that period. Any wrestler that's been in the game for, let's say, 10 years or more has someone in those Ring of Honor 2000s that one of them was their guy. They might have liked all of them, but one of them had somebody. And for me, I love Nigel. I loved watching his matches. I loved the intricacies. And I really did kind of learn about him through the PWIs. I was like, oh, I like his look. And I like that style. And that, was while I was learning about the William Regals, which is why I took an appreciation for Regal in WCW when he was wrestling Ricky Steamboat, and then he backhanded Sting, which was crazy. So I was like, wow, this guy just really backhanded Sting. and Sting was I guess he was going to try and fight back, but they, kind of cut. But that was powerful. So I always loved powerful characters. And Ric Flair, to me, I always saw power in him. I always saw this guy is just always on top. Even if you beat him, he's going back to the money. He's going back to the suits. He can still party tonight. He's going back to his friends. He's just going to come back tomorrow, and he's probably just going to win tomorrow.
True.
You beat him once. He's just going to win tomorrow. That was how I always looked at it. You don't really lose, So that's my earliest memory of that.
So you were talking about you had a strong taste for workers or wrestlers that were wrestlers. So Darius, what was the moment that you said to yourself, I have to be a pro wrestler?
I don't think there was ever a period where I didn't think that, which was really crazy. I don't think it was I woke up one day and was I'm going to be a pro wrestler. I think once I saw it, I just subliminally, you know, in the back of my head knew that's what I wanted to do. I mean, there were other things that growing up that I was entertaining. I was entertaining being a chef, believe it or not, because I had culinary arts, you know, and theater, you know, I was considering that. There were a lot of things that were kind of blips in my mind, you know, because when you have multiple talents, you know, you can stretch out like that, just like you talking about wrestling and broadcasting, you know, and potential commentary. I mean, these are all doors that open when you have different types of talents. And you got to respect those talents and love those talents. So, you know, that's what it's about to me is just taking advantage of every opportunity. Whatever bridge is provided to me, I might as well take a step in that direction and see what's on the other side, or what, you know, what is potentially there, because it's all about riches. It's all about wealth, and not just money wealth, but a wealth of knowledge, wealth of experience. That's what wrestling's richest prize means. When people, what does wrestling's richest prize means? That means to be the richest prize in wrestling. That means to be literally and purely rich. No filth, no waste. Every part of it is just absolutely. And that's what Darius Carter is. That's what Darius Carter is all about. You know what I mean? And that's what, and people are like, oh, I get it. You know, oh, but no, that's what it comes down to. I think I'd always wanted to be, you know, a wrestler, and when it became an option for me, there was no turning back. You know, I never stopped wrestling. I had never stopped training. You know, and you were there, we were there doing it together, man.
Yep.
Like, and you knew that I was coming from class or this and that, just like you were coming from a class and where you were coming from. So you and I think what brought us together was that you and I were actually so much into the school. Yes. And so much into the scholastic system. Whereas, you know, some other guys came from whatever they were coming from. Not that they were bad spots, but you and I came from, you know, you and I literally came from an educational, like, yo, like, you go to school? Yeah, I go to school.
Yep.
Oh, okay, like.
And I worked a regular job at the same time.
Right, that's right. And we were also working too, because I was working too. So I had the job, and then I had school, and then I had wrestling, and then I had this, you know, the business ventures, and everything was happening just like you had. And I think you had several things going on too, and that really connected us. But still, that's what enriches you. Those are the things that make you valuable.
Yep, you began your pro wrestling training in November 2008 with Body Slam Wrestling Organization, the BWO. And at that time, it was at the Hasbrook Heights location, which, if people don't know, was an important part of the movie The Wrestler starring Mickey Rourke. Darius, how did you make the decision to team with, to learn from Richie Rotten, Nunzio, and the legend, the icon, and previous guest, Magic?
Magic. And yeah, yo, that's very true. It wasn't that first wrestling match scene with Mickey Rourke and Tommy. I think it was Tommy with the spiked hair. That was his name in the thing. And that was the BWO ring, because Tommy Face was in there. Yep.
Then Rich was in the crowd.
Richie Rotten was there.
Yep.
Cleaning up the ring afterwards. It's a great scene. So I knew Ben, Dan Murdoch.
Oh, I love him. He's an author now.
A very, very close friend. Much love to him. I haven't seen him in years, but we pick up where we catch off, and it's great. So Dan Murdoch and I, he met me because he knew me through John Harder. So we were all friends. We'd always talk and watch wrestling pay-per-views and hang out. And he knew, and he was like, "Hey man, like, do you want to be a wrestler? Like, you really want to do this? You want to try this out?" Because he saw talent in me. He saw someone, like, I guess, like, how I was talking in my mind and stuff like that. And he's like, "All right, let's go." So I went up to the school with him, Hasbrook Heights, and that was pretty much it. So it wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't like I stumbled across like this like message in a bottle and like tracked it down like 72 miles or 720 miles. No, it was like, he just, I just had a friend that was training, and he was like, "Oh, you want to try it out?" So I went to the training school. I learned to bump, and I had all these things I wanted to do because, from wrestling in the backyard and stuff like that. And that's what we were kind of doing. So, so it was like, you have all these ideas and all these other things, but Richie really, and it was tough with him in the beginning, because we definitely weren't certain things we just weren't seeing eye to eye on, and sometimes just wanted to get away from him. But as time went on, and now I have so much respect for him because I understand why he did what he did.
Right.
It made me so much better, and it really did ego check me at the door. And for that, I'm very grateful. And people will be like, he was still hard on you. And I'm like, but honestly, it's made me so much better that I can't even look back and complain. You know what I mean? There's just no point. I'm stronger. I'm better. I'm durable. I can take the hits, which I've had to take over the years, things that would crush a lot of people and make them not want to continue forward. I will just keep walking through them. I'll crawl through them if I have to, but I'll keep going. I never stop. And that's just what's put me to where I am today, is because I don't stop. So while others took a break, and there's no reason not to, because it's a pandemic, so you can't blame them for it. But I can't afford to do that. My mind says that, my body says that. I have to keep going and make a statement about myself and who I am. And that's picking up a lot of attention, and I'm grateful for that. The pandemic has not been bad to me. The pandemic has not been a negative thing to me, and that's just the way that it is. I'm grateful that I'm able to find prosperity in a time of recession, to say the least.
Since I've come back, 2020 has probably been my best year for wrestling, because I didn't get to wrestle a lot because of the pandemic. But in the times that I did get to wrestle, I made sure that it was always quality. It was always quality that I went out there and I did. I didn't go out there. I always tried to be something different on the card. Everybody wants to do the high spots and stuff like that. For me, I just want to go in there and tell a story. Let's tell a story and be different. We don't have to jump out the ring. We don't got to do nothing crazy, but let's tell a story. And at the end, they go, you know what? I think I want to see those guys again. While everyone is working behind me to make the Tristen Law Show better, I wanted to take a quick timeout to ask you to subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, rate the Tristen Law Show 5 stars and leave a review. Now, let's get back to the show. Fun thing as well, too, I always bother Richie. And I say, Richie, why don't we do a Tony Scoff memorial show? For BWO. For those of you guys who don't know who Tony Scoff, man, I miss that guy to death, man. To death, man.
Tony was, man. And think about Tony. Tony was so encouraging. Hold on.
Before you get to Tony, let me paint the picture of Tony. So Tony, when we were in the BWO in Bergen County, New Jersey, North Bergen, wherever, Tony Scoff used to come around. He was a friend of Richie Rotten. He was also a member of the Garfield Fire Department. He was also a member of the Board of Ed, and he actually was a manager for BW. He was actually my manager at one time in BWO, and his son was also a referee for BWO, and there'd be plenty of times that we're there training, and Tony is there learning as well how to be a referee. So for those people that think For those people that think that Tony was just a guy that just came around, yeah, he was just a guy that came around, but he was a big part of BWO just as much as I was, you was, Richie was, or anybody else was.
His hands were in multiple pots. He was doing a lot of different things. And again, very influential in terms of being someone that you could go to. When I was frustrated, and I had plenty of times where I was frustrated in BWO, and we know that, you and I and the things that we would talk about because we couldn't go to everyone else and talk about it. A lot of frustrations, and, Tony was always there to listen and genuinely listen, not like, oh, well, all right, I'm going to hear what you're saying and throw it right back on you and make you suffer and wallow in it. He would really listen and just make you feel welcome. And it was great because everybody respected Tony. Everybody loved Tony. So to have somebody that everybody respected in a locker room feel that way about you made you want to keep coming. You were like, all right, well, you know what? There's this nonsense that I'm feeling and that's going on, but I know that there's love there because I have this person and that person and Tony Scoff, and Scoff was always there, man. And Scoff was, it's just, he almost, it's funny because you almost think he's like immortal. You never think you'll see him go.
Right.
I never, he was old, he was older. He was, elderly, but I never thought I would see the day that Scoff wouldn't be with us.
Right.
So, and I myself like to think of myself as immortal. So, but in all seriousness, like Scoff, I just didn't think that he would ever go, So that was really surreal when I heard about that. I was like, wow, like the BWO flag kind of fell,
One of the things, though, about the time that we started wrestling in that 2009 to 2010 and beyond, and even till today, is that, it's inevitable. We have to check out. And when we do check out, things like this podcast, things like our matches on YouTube, those are things that immortalize us, and we will live forever. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm looking. I mean, I guess I'm looking forward to it, but I can't because I probably won't be here. But maybe in like 50 years, my grandkids could be looking at this and go, "Oh, I remember my grandfather used to. I heard my grandfather used to wrestle." And they look us up and they can listen to us talking and see us wrestling, or find a picture of us holding the belt together. Because we're gonna be immortalized on YouTube and other parts of the internet.
That's beautiful. That really is.
So you mentioned that you had your first match against Johnny Ego. And I want us to go back, look at that first match now. Do you think that you were ready for your first match?
I think I was ready for that because I think that I delivered in that context. Given that it was my first match, given that we had 3 minutes, we definitely tried to cram a bunch of stuff in there because it was 3 minutes and we wanted to show what we could do. So we definitely did a lot. Like, it was like just chain and technical wrestling, a bunch of different stuff. Again, that was in 2009, April of 2009, in May, around that period. So it's kind of like, I'm not going to say it holds up, and I don't even think I want to see it back, to be honest with you. There's some footage. It's like, I don't want to see it again. I don't want to see it. And I don't know, but it's 3 minutes, but it might feel like a long 3 minutes, but, oh man, I don't know. I can tell you, like I said, man, I've seen 20-minute matches that feel like they're 10-minute matches, and I've seen 5-minute matches that feel like they're a half hour. I don't know. It's a funny time. It's a funny thing to think about. But I don't know, man. I think that, like, there's just so many ways that there's so many things to keep your eye out on, and so many ways to keep yourself elevated and moving forward and stuff like that. So it's very important. And another one for Scoff too. Miss Scoff, man. He's still on my head just thinking about him. I'm not gonna lie. He popped back in and just like a hand on your shoulder, like, you're doing all right, kid. Mm-hmm. And that's I don't know. Just talking about Scoff again. Yeah.
Tony Scoff, man. Going back to your first match, Darius, I want you to go into a time machine because, anybody that knows me knows I love time travel movies. And if you can go back into the time traveler, into the DeLorean, and you could stop yourself right before you went through the curtain for the first time, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, man. And you know what? That's true. And that match was funny, man. I had my gold trunks, and I remember too going into that too. I was self-conscious because I was like, I don't think I'm big enough to be wearing trunks, because I was still coming out wrestling in a suit at that time.
I remember that. Uh-huh.
So I would actually come out in a suit and then just take off this jacket, take off the shirt, and then just wrestle. I would take off the watch, and I would just wrestle in the suit pants and the wrestling boots with the knee pads under, which is a cool thing. And then I did the linen, and then I did the gold trunks because I remember, and Preacher was all about it, and I was like, I look good. I was, but I also was just skinny, and I was just like, oh man, but whatever. But it was a good time. If one thing that I would tell myself before I went out there, is to listen to the crowd, and you could always say not overthink it, don't overthink it. But I think bigger than that, because we went out there and we're doing all these things for really ourselves. It wasn't for the crowd. Like, we wanted to show that we could do stuff. Like, I wanted to show my technical wrestling, and he wanted to show his lucha. So we were just doing a bunch of just technical wrestling lucha stuff crammed into 3 minutes. And I think we, you know, from a crowd's perspective, like, the crowd was there, but like, we could have really, you know, really wanted to challenge him. We could have pulled out an emotional match in 3 minutes and came back there and really shook people up. You know, instead we went the let's do everything, let's cram it in, and that's just not needed. It's just making the fans have to pay attention. You're telling the fans that it's going to be a short match because you're doing all this stuff so early. It's just not needed. People, you know, don't want to be 1 minute into a match and already looking to the end,
right?
Because they think it's going to come. Right. You know, he's hitting a hurricanrana, you know, a minute in, you know, they're like, oh, great, you know, wait for it, we hook the leg, you know. So if there was one thing I could tell myself, would just be to just listen to the crowd, let the crowd like feel that. Because if I could have attacked him and caught him with like a nice gut kick right in the beginning and the crowd reacted, we wouldn't have had to do any of that, and I could have just gone right into what I was going to do. So yeah, definitely, that's it. That's the back to the future advice for young Mr. Darius Carter, you know.
Well, let's come back to the present. Let's talk to today's Darius Carter. Darius, you've not only beaten up men, but you've been in the ring against Kimber Lee of Impact Wrestling, who also used to be back there at BWO with us.
Yeah, she was.
Yep. Mercedes Martinez of NXT. You've beat her up as well, too. And that's just to name a few. So, Darius, what is it about intergender wrestling that attracts you?
You know, to me, it's and it's all genders. You know what I'm saying? To me, it's mixed gender, it's intergender, wherever walk of life. To me, that is all secondary to your talent in this sport. That is all secondary to your ability to be a great professional wrestler. And it just so happens that some of the best professional wrestlers that are going right now, whether they're on the scene or contract or what have you, a lot of them are LGBT. And it's just the way that it is. Lot, you know, there are a lot of non-binary, tremendous talents. You know, the Chikara breakthrough on the independent scene has been tremendous because a lot of the talent that was in that little bubble has burst out. And now, you know, talent we've wanted to compete against for a while, I wanted to compete against. Now I'm right there next to them, and that's tremendous. So to see the talent, to see so many things coming to the surface. That's what the name of the game is. That's what the name of the game is stepping yourself up, being the best that you can be. And again, surrounding yourself with quality competition, which is going to make you elevate your own game. That's what this is all about. We talk about the Darius of today. You know, and that's how I got here, was off of this experience, off of my experiences with all of these tremendous talents I was able to mix it up with. The times I'd look in the mirror and reflect on myself, and the times that I would ruminate and I would meditate on myself and think on myself. There's a lot of depth that goes into me and who I am. There are layers and layers upon layers upon layers to the onion that is Darius, and there's a lot to me, and I love to peel them back myself and to continue, and that's what life is. You just want to keep on going. You want to leave that legacy behind. You definitely do, but you also don't want to leave anything behind, because you don't want to have to leave. So there's a lot that you want to do. You know, it's a lot of ambition.
For me, I really wanted to wrestle somebody of another gender, and I really hope I'm using the terminology right. But I really want to work in an intergender match with somebody and do that, because I'm like, you know what? Like you said, there are some really good female or non-binary LGBTQ plus professional wrestlers out there who you won't get the opportunity to wrestle in most places because they may look like a woman, and some people feel that men shouldn't wrestle a woman. But I'm like, well, why shouldn't men wrestle women? You know, look at Kill Bill. She ran around with a sword and she killed a lot of men. So why is that wrong?
Right, and look at the talent. Again, we talk about the talent pool that is there, and we talk about the hard hitting capacity, because like I said, what I like about wrestling, and two women, as well in particular, is, you know what? It's like I feel like we're able to tell a story. We're able to go out there and to make it very simple. It's very easy. We know who I am, who Darius Carter is. We know who you are. All we're doing is projecting that and playing that out to the on-watching audience. And I think sometimes people overcomplicate that. I think sometimes when you're wrestling with certain types of men, they want to do what they want to do. It doesn't really matter what you want to do. And you can put it together, but it's really just two separate things, two separate styles that are clashing for 10 minutes or whatever, because they don't really care to work with you. And I tweeted about that, about people that want to have the same match over and over again with different people. And I was like, those people like that are extraterrestrial to me. They're very alien, because you want to have the same match over and over again, but you want to do it with different people. Why does it matter who you're doing it with if it's the same match? True. For me, I always want to do something different. Even now, in every match I'm doing something different. I'm testing myself. All right, great. I know that I can do this really well. All right, great. That doesn't mean I'm going to repeat it in every match. Let me try this here and see if I do this the way I want it to. Now I have two things within two matches, and I can continue to staircase this and use them when I need to. It's like a puzzle. It's just creating the puzzle and stowing it away for when I need it for that particular occasion. I think, a lot of women, they can take the hits. They don't complain. You could give them a nice shot, a nice kick. I almost kicked Erica Lee's lip off, and, she didn't complain at all. She was apologizing to me, if anything. You know what I'm saying? So this is just the game. And I just liked it when people understand what this sport is. You know what I mean? There's a chance it's going to get hurt. I've come back with plenty of licks and plenty of bruises and this and that. I don't go out there and post them when I get home. I don't sit there and bury people. I don't politic against people. It's a sport. It's a fight. You're going to get hit. If you're in pro wrestling and think that you're not going to take a hit, you need to leave. I mean, it's just the way that it is. This isn't for you. You want to be an actor and you want to use wrestling as your gateway. You want to be a fashion model and use wrestling as your gateway. Well, on the way through, you're gonna get punched and kicked, and it's gonna be painful. Right. You're not gonna just like slide on through and duck and like, no, that's not how that works. And that's what I'm representing right now is professional wrestling, the sanctity of pro wrestling. So that's the name of the game. But again, that's what I like about mixed gender, intergender wrestling. I like that competitiveness. I like what they bring out in you. I like the challenge, and I like the boldness of it. I just like the boldness. It's exhilarating. It's authentic. It's authentic. It's real. That's what I like. Me versus Mercedes Martinez was real. It felt real. It felt authentic. Me and Kimberly, authentic. Me and Saraya Knight.
That's right. Paige's mother.
United Kingdom legend.
Yep. WWE Paige, her mom. Yep.
Legend. Over 30 years wrestling in this business. Let's not, in all due respect to Paige, let's talk about Saraya and her own respect. 30 plus. Leading promotions, Bellatrix. This woman's been all over the world, technical grappler. I've seen her study book with John Cortez. I've seen her study, come on, man, Mal Sanders. This woman is an absolute gift and a credit to pro wrestling. I absolutely adore her and cherish her. And I still slapped her across the mouth in front of all those people. And I did not ever apologize and never will. So this is what I mean. It's just quality work that I was able to get with those women. So it is what it is.
So you were talking about representing, and there's something that when I first saw it, it hit me and made me feel a certain kind of way. And I know it probably made you feel a certain kind of way as well too, Darius, because you've been wearing the scarf and suits to the ring much longer than Alberto Del Rio and MJF. How did you feel when you first saw Alberto Del Rio in the WWE and MJF in AEW with the rich guy's scarf and suit gimmick?
Oh, man. And I remember Del Rio, man. Because Del Rio, Del Rio was an agitating situation for me because it made so much sense with him. And that's what was so frustrating, because it's like, all right, well, of course, Mil Mascaras, and you come from wrestling royalty. And I'm just like, oh, this guy, just everything. You know what I mean? What am I going to come out to a limo on the indies? Like, these are all things, because if I could have been doing that, I would have been doing that. I was already coming out in suits. And I was like, well, as I'm evolving and changing my repertoire, I was like, well, I wanted to add the scarf, and you were there for that. And me adding elements of style and class and fashion to the style of Darius Carter, to the overall essence of Darius Carter. And yeah, Del Rio was tough, man. And then seeing him, all that success he was getting, and then he's winning the WWE title, and you're just like, oh man. So like, I know I have something that works. I have something that's valuable. It's not me. And of course I was young at the time, you know what I mean? So it is what it is. You can't expect, to have those, to be at that type of level when you're 6, 7 years, whatever it was. But like, that was tough, man, just seeing him. And I was like, I did a really great enziguri. Like, that was one of my first moves. And he's doing an enziguri. And I'm like, oh, like, I'm not saying he watched my stuff, because, all right, it's an enziguri's an enziguri.
Right.
But it's like, oh, you got the suit and the scarf. You're doing the enziguri. You're doing the viciousness that I was tapping into. He was, tapping, and I was just like, and now people were like to me, oh, scarf like Del Rio. And I'm like, what? Like, I had this scarf. I was doing this already. And that was a very frustrating thing. It was just tough. And then MJF, don't even get me started. MJF, MJF, man, there's just a lot of biting on the presentation, and that's all there is to it. MJF, people tell me that MJF is, a Darius Carter light, and you could say, all right, well, you're in AEW and you're doing this and that because you got you're in the right crowd, man. You are, and that's great, but. I almost didn't even want to get too much into it, because I'm not in a political position where I can sit here and say things, but all I'll know is this, that if there was no Darius Carter, there would be no MJF. I'll say that for sure. He definitely wouldn't have the scarf, because I remember what he was doing originally, and he wasn't doing that. He had the shades, he was coming out with the shades. He was coming out with the arrogant thing, but he wasn't doing the scarf thing. The first time I saw MJF, there was no scarf, and the first time he saw me, there was a scarf. But it's neither here nor there. When people, people take some stuff from you, when people borrow, it's the same thing. We all are taking from other people. You don't always expect to take from the guy next to you. Things that I'm inspired by Ric Flair. I'm inspired by William Regal. I'm inspired by Billy Robinson. I'm inspired by Nick Bockwinkel. That's my pro wrestling Mount Rushmore right there. So I do things that, that I've picked up from them. Randy Orton, to me, is my current favorite wrestler and best professional wrestler in the world. So there's certain things that you pick up from everybody, right? But you got to make it your own. Right. I'm not going to sit here and do the Orton draping DDT. I'm not going to do an RKO. You have to be respectful in your approach. You're paying homage to the people you love. Everybody's paying homage to the ones they love, but do that in a respectful way. It's another to just straight siphon from somebody. It's another to straight steal from somebody. And I never liked just stealing things. I don't think there's any appeal in that. I think if I steal something and then you should show it back to me and in front of a crowd of people, I always think like that. Like, what happens if like you're lying on something and then somebody just plays it on a projector in front of a room full of like 1,000 people? Like, what do you have to say? And I think I had like a dream or something like that a while ago. And ever since then, I always thought like that. Like, don't put yourself in a position where your whole show can get shut down. Right. Like, quickly. And there's a lot of guys that are in positions right now on TV that like, if somebody just pulled out the tape, that's a wrap. And my whole thing is like building a career and a legacy off of not having to do things like that. So when you try to dig in a closet and people already have tried, you're not going to find anything because I took care of myself. I took care of my business, and I'm not, taking anything away from people along the way. People that owe people things, those are the ones that get their stuff displayed on a speaker box. So those are the ones that get their stuff displayed on a projector like a David Starr. And that's why those people are where they are, because you're hiding things. So the people that are hiding things, it will come to light, as all things do. And I will continue to remain, because that's one of my greatest characteristics. It's my mutant ability is to remain. It is what it is.
Darius, I remember William Regal. He once gave you advice on Twitter. And that was a long time ago. Dude, I remember that. If William Regal is listening to you right now, William Regal from WWE NXT, if he's listening right now, what is the most important thing for him to know about you?
Oh, man, that's powerful. I remember that tweet exchange, too. I was such like...
What was the tweet? Tell us the tweet, and then go into the question.
I was such a nerd. So what happened was, because I had tweeted him before, but he didn't answer, and he shouldn't have answered. But there was one point, I did a Regalplex. I was doing a Regalplex with someone. I want to say it was Drew Gulak at Beyond Wrestling. I did a Regalplex, and Regal saw it on Twitter, didn't tag him, didn't do anything involving his name, so that's how they're watching. And Regal saw it and was like, and this must have been 2011, 12, around there. And Regal saw it and was like, that was, a nice, good Regalplex, but be careful with that move, because it can mess up your shoulder. And you got to be it's just something to be very careful about. And I was like, okay. And I said to him, I was like, because I don't do a bridging version, and Regal did do a bridging version. I was aware of this. I'm not going to sit here and say that to him, because he knows that. But Regal did a bridging version. I did a release. I always do a release Regalplex. So I take a clean back bump, and you go over and you land on your upper back and just roll over, and it looks like you landed on your neck, what have you, okay? I was like, does it make a difference if I bridge or don't bridge? And he was like, well, it's good to not bridge, because the bridge is what messed me up, but the move itself is still dangerous to the user and to the person you're doing it to, because the user, you're shifting and you're turning. So you can land on your shoulder if you don't appropriate yourself for the back bump, which is very true. So, of course, it's true. It's coming from Regal. So that was what he had tweeted me, but it was just funny how he tweeted me, and I didn't message him. I didn't @ him or anything like that. So he just saw it. So I don't know if he vanity searched or what it was, but it was like, he couldn't have, because I didn't say William Regal. So maybe he looked up Regalplex. I don't know. But if William Regal is watching this, which I'm sure he isn't, but you can't be sure about the unsure. If he was watching this, like, thank you for that. And it's definitely something I thought about. It's a move I definitely use scarcely, just not just for that reason, but also to build up the move. Because if you're doing a Regalplex in every match, you're dropping a guy on his back or on his neck every match. Now everyone wants to see you do that to everybody. It's like, you got to change it up, and you want to make things feel special. So I make that move special, and I think that's definitely a part of it, is by like thinking about myself and my body and thinking about the opponent and stuff like that. But when it's time to pull it out, it's time to pull it out. But if you see me wrestle 10 matches, I may do it in one of them. I may do it in none of them if it doesn't feel right. But it's a move I have there. So
Darius, what are your ultimate goals in pro wrestling?
I mean, yeah, you could say you just want to make it to TV, right? And in a way, I've already been on TV. I've been, in different places in the world, in Africa, in Zimbabwe, in South America, thanks to Catalyst Wrestling and all their connections in Houston, Texas. So on Gas Digital and Fight TV. So I'm on a lot of different apps. I'm on a lot of different people's TVs in a literal sense, because you can watch the app through the TV. But in terms of like network cable TV, and I've been on cable TV too, whether it's late night or it's like early morning, 2:00 a.m. spot, 3:00 a.m. Well, guess what? It's still TV. You know what I mean? But and you know about TV as well. But to really be like contracted and signed, but that's not the end goal. That's a goal for the future. I always said, man, my end goal was to go into a WrestleMania holding the heavyweight championship of the world, and then wrestling the next biggest star, and that person wins and goes on to I can create that next star. That's what I always wanted to do. I wanted to be a perpetual learning tree. I wanted to post up and basically be able to help make the next protagonist that you need.
Darius, if WWE, AEW, or another top-notch pro wrestling organization is listening, why is Darius Carter the best person to be given a contract?
Because I'm Wrestling's Richest Prize. I'm the All-Father. I'm something different. I'm something unique. It's the look. It's the style. It's the talent. It's the commitment. It's the dedication. I'm really here just to pay respect to the basics, to pay respect to the fundamentals of the sport, to the profession, and to giving it back. Everything I do is to give it back. And I think if you see any of my work, if you see my promos, if you see the way I carry myself, if you hear about the way I carry myself in locker rooms and this is what I'm here for. This is my life. This is what I love. This is my passion. And I don't need to sit here and sell you on a tragedy story. I don't need to give you a Shakespearean play because I just know what I can do. I know what my ability is, and I know what I'm here to do. I'm here to give back. I'm here to make the business better in a place, leave it in a better place once I'm gone than before I came into it. To leave it better than I left it in a shortened sense. But I don't want to leave it, So it's just I think if you really watched and you gave it a chance and you really looked at what I was working at and looked at what I was doing and trying to do, you would understand. And you could really find an appreciation for me. So anybody that's watching, if you don't know who Darius Carter is, look me up. I will send you what you need to be sent. I'll send you the information. I have the resumes if we still care about those types of things anymore. I'm telling you, I'm out here and I'm really doing my best and I'm really looking to shine, and I want to take people with me and I want to elevate everyone around me, and I just want to pay homage to the profession. And and if you give me the stage, I will give you a show. That's all I can tell you.
So what's next for Darius Carter?
Next is just, going to as many different promotions as I can, winning more championships, putting more spotlight on the company and therefore onto myself. And we'll see what offers are made. I'm not particularly seeking to get signed tomorrow. I'm not sitting here saying I want to be signed right now. Because I do want to travel the world and I do want to become as well seasoned as possible. That to me is so important. And again, what 2020 was about was just adding to that seasoning, a little bit of paprika, a little bit of this, salt, pepper, this. I just want the seasoning to be so refined and the flavoring to be so refined that by the time you do want to put a TV camera or you do notice me, by the time you do pick me up, I'm the best Darius Carter that I've been. I have to be the best me every day because I don't know when the next day is the day or when that day is the day. So I just keep improving every match. I want to be better than my last match, even if the opponent isn't as good. I gotta make it work.
Right.
And play to the strengths, and that's just the way that the game is. So I just see myself progressing. I see myself being better. I see myself. Maybe I'll enter the 200s next year, maybe the one, I don't know. But I would like to at least break the 300s in the PWI. I would like to just be recognized and to just get that appreciation. And I feel like that is coming around in a lot of ways, a lot of offers and a lot of conversations I've had and started to have. So it's good to see that. that's where I see myself. I mean, I just have to keep moving. I have to keep on moving. Keep on moving, don't stop now. I have to keep rolling. And I don't run out of energy. The stamina does not decrease. So that's it. I just got to keep on hustling.
Well, Darius, brother, much love to you, man. It's so good that you were able to sit down with me and finally talk, and introduce yourself to the listen of the Tristen Law Show. But after this, I think some of them may want to seek you out on social media. So tell them how they can find you anywhere outside of the Tristen Law Show.
Absolutely. So outside of the Tristen Law Show, you can find me on Twitter, which is Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of them. It's the same way. It's / Mr. Darius Carter. All right. Mr. Darius Carter. All right. As you see displayed, DariusCarter. It's not difficult. Mr. Darius Carter. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And then you can also find my Facebook fan page, which is / Wrestling's Richest Prize. So I have some unique posts there, some different things that I do on that page. But yeah, those are the top 4 ways to find me. YouTube me, Darius Carter. There's that basketball player, but for the most part, my matches will come up. So there you go. It's the game. And pick up a controller and play. Yes, because I'm a top seller. You understand?
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the World's Richest Prize, the All-Father, and like I said, my friend, Darius Carter. Thank you very much, Darius. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere because when I get back, I'm going to give you my thoughts on this interview and who will be here next week on the Tristen Law Show. Hey, you. Yeah, I'm talking to you. That shirt you're wearing is so not cool. Why don't you head on over to TristenLawShow.com and get yourself a new shirt? Not only will you be cool, but you'll also be supporting the show. What are you waiting for? Go now and get a hat too while you're at it. Thank me later. We're the show at TristenLawShow.com. Welcome back to the Tristen Law Show, and I hope that you're having a great time. We're looking to promote your band or brand here on the Tristen Law Show. Contact the Tristen Law Show at TristenLawShow.com or TristenLawShow@gmail.com for more info. Well, that was Darius Carter, and if you didn't already know, you can catch him on Catalyst Wrestling and many other pro wrestling organizations. That man, Darius Carter, he is well-traveled. What did you think of Darius? Reach out on social media because I love to hear what you think. What I think is, how has this man not gotten a bigger opportunity yet? I will tell you, though, good things do come to those who wait. Maybe he and MJF can squash their beef in an AEW ring on TNT. Either way, Darius, my brother, thank you very much for the time. And let's talk to each other more often. Next week, I'm going to give you something different to listen to. Every week you hear from me as the host, but what if I was the guest and not the host? What if I was in the hot seat? Well, that's exactly what you're going to get next week as I sit down with Matt Rivera. Yep, the same guy from our episode 13. Yep, the Cheapskate Pro Wrestler from Extreme Cheapskates on TLC. Go back to episode 13 and give that one a listen. Because next episode, you're going to learn a little bit about me, and you don't want to miss it. If you like this episode, I need a favor from you. Yes, I am talking to you. Share this on your favorite social media platform, and don't forget to tag myself for the show. Don't make this be the thing that you do. Let's make this be the thing that we do. You can also walk up to a random stranger and tell them to listen to the Tristen Law Show. Yeah, they may think you're crazy, but who cares what other people think, right? Fine. If you're worried about being judged, go on over to TristenLawShow.com and at least buy a shirt. People will think that you're really, really cool. Rate the Tristen Law Show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and leave a review, please. Reviews mean a lot. Whichever podcast platform you're using to listen, please subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop. The best part is that it's free. Learn about myself and the Tristen Law Show by typing TristenLawShow.com in your internet-enabled device for more info. I've been waiting for you next week. I am Tristen Law. This is the Tristen Law Show. And until next time, adios.